Morning, guys. Sun is out. Wow, what a beautiful morning. We are going to cover today something that's pretty important, and I think that we all have fallen into this trap at some point, and I'm bringing you this information because I've learned the hard way. And I started doing this years ago and with great success, and I had a property last year that we did what I used to do on this as far as planting these food plots, and I just it just coined again that I need to stay away from that. And the reason is, what we're going to talk about, guys, is we're going to talk about how to plant these plots, what to plant them to, pertaining to the certain time of the year, and also how to not create drama while doing so. So the topic is what to plant and how to plant these food plots, whether it's spring or fall plots or plantings. What I'd like to do is, going back to what I had just mentioned about not getting caught up in the shot plot. Now, shot plots in a transition area, at the end of a transition area, and a shot plot to me is, so first of all, talking about a shot plot. A shot plot, to me, is in a transition area before it goes out to feed. Obviously, if you followed along with me, I do not promote hunting on these food plots. I promote food plots to no end, in the right food plots, in the right tonnage, but we don't hunt over them. And the reason is like we've always talked, is keep that pressure and that drama off those food plots. To be able to get in and off from those, or in and out of those areas undetected without blowing the food plots, is huge, especially on small parcels. So, shot plots in a transition area. What a shot plot to me is, and you see these industry leaders in these food plot packages, and a lot of them have great packages. The problem with it is, a lot of them are promoting shot plots as brassicas, as heavy holders is what I call them, and it's not a it's kind of misleading to me. And I wish that they would go to more of a approach of a shot plot being as simple as rye or oats. But as you know, and I know, rye and oats isn't as fancy as brassicas, as turnips. So that's why they do it. But the reason that I do not plant a shot plot, that even if it's in a transition area and created equal, the reason that I do not plant them to a brassica is because it stops and holds deer, and it's no different than having your main food plot at that point. You have to have something that bypasses. I'm a big believer of not endorsing or doing the shot plots at all. But if you're going to do them, if you're trying to get deer kind of funneled down, if you will, headed towards your destination feed locations as far as your food plots, then I would highly recommend planting them to rye or oats. Both of them they grow in light soils. The pH doesn't have to be nearly as strong, and they're both kind of what I would say fail proof plots. You'll get something to grow pretty easy. You'd have to plant it during a drought, not to get annual rye, not ryegrass, but annual rye and oats to grow, or not to grow. So shot plots, so that takes care of that topic as far as the shot plots. The other thing that I see a lot of is the diversion inside of food plots. Spring food plots, to me, especially if you're in an area that is is planted to is going to be planted in a summer plot or a spring plot, let's say, unless you're going to plant clover, so you get a 2 or 3 year perennial out of these clover plots and stuff, I wouldn't recommend going in and diversifying these food plots. In other words, putting half of it into clover, leaving putting half of it into rye. And especially like this plot here, guys, this is the house plot that we've been on and been working on here, and this is the one I've been doing all the work right up here on the bank into the new stand location, and the bedding area and everything is down in here. And as you can see, it all comes into funnels right past and comes into the food plot. the moral of the story is to not get caught into this trap of thinking that you have to plant these food plots and separate them to give them more to eat. What I highly recommend doing is, if you're going to plant a plot to something, the whole plot gets planted to the same thing. Everything in that plot is planted to the exact same thing. This here, you can see behind me, it's a new location last year, and it was planted to rye late in the year, and I did this late fall by the time that I got done with my other projects, and we're able to plant this. I planted it to rye, and you can see it's coming in really well. But we've got more work to do on it this year, and I'm leveling it all out and kind of extending the pinch point where they enter the food plot and all that stuff, adding onto it. So it's all going to get replanted anyway. Going back to what to plant, I recommend planting the entire thing. If you want a perennial, go with a clover or an alfalfa mix. If your ground permits, make sure the pH. It's the biggest thing. Soil samples are great, but the main thing you need to be focused on when you're planting brassicas or all these food plot worthy seeds is your pH. I've got a test kit that I carry with me that I do all my clients, and it's just a little container. It's got little capsules that I mix into it, and it just tells me the pH, and it does say, I do have little test kits that'll tell me nitrogen and stuff, but the main focus is simply these the pH. You get your pH level right, and obviously if it's low, it takes a ton of lime to raise your pH 0.5%. So every time you add a ton, it raises it 0.5%. In that, it's not that's per acre. So seed wise, depending on what we won't waste time going down the road of how many pounds per acre, because it's such a diverse area where you're at, what you're planting, what you're trying to control. I like I like putting these plots into, if it's in an area where it's a perennial versus an annual, then I'll plant I'll get 2 or 3 years out of them, and I'll go over that with the clients and reach their goals as far as planting. Like I said, a clover, I like the clover alfalfa mix, but when I go into the fall blends, then obviously it's a lot of brassicas, and the brassicas to me is what I like to plant is, I plant a lot of purple top turnips, red radish, and winter peas, and I need to come out with a blend, is because I used to sell for one of the major holds, I guess you could say, one of the major suppliers in the food plot seed industry, and a lot of it's so much filler that I'm not taking anything from their products, but I go and buy bulk seed from the mill, and I mix my own stuff, and that's what I plant on my projects, and I recommend that my clients do as well. Anytime that you start seeing this ryegrass, or it's just a filler, so you're buying this seed and you're not getting the best bang for your buck because you're buying filler, and it's a waste. It's a way to fill a bag and get the pounds that they need per bag, and not the quality. So hence the reason I don't sell any of that anymore. I buy in bulk, and maybe someday we'll have our own blend kind of thing, but right now we buy in bulk and we mix it. So the biggest topic of this video here that I wanted to touch on is just not diversifying your food plots. Whatever you're going to plant, make an educated decision. Reach out to someone like myself, go over, make a plan, figure out what you need to plant. If it's an annual situation, you're going to plant brassicas in these plots. If it's small, like a 1/4 acre like this, get your size determinations figured out, and then figure out if it's going to be a clover and a alfalfa blend, or so you get 2 or 3 years out of it before you have to reseed it. Then you can frost seed them, those plots, those perennials, you can frost seed them, and they last a long time and they do very well. But if it's going to be a situation where it's brassica, what I do is I'll go in, and my spring plantings are all rye, and I put it to rye, and rye is an excellent attractant for the deer. It's way overlooked, I believe, but it's also it's a great way to create organic matter, because fact of the matter is I'm going to say 95% of the properties that I go on, the organic matter is not what it needs to be in these food plots, and that's where people struggle, is because there's no bottom to their soil. The soil condition doesn't permit a bottom. So what you're doing is you go out in these areas and you spend all your hard-earned money and lime and in the correct fertilizer. You know, if you think you had the correct fertilizer, and you plant these and there's no bottom, and it just seeps away and it doesn't retain water. So what I highly recommend doing is, if you're here in Michigan and you're following along and you watch this, or if you're around the country, we can ship it to you, get it to you, or I can hook you up with the right people. I don't sell that. I don't sell for them. I use it and I promote their product. Is the Morgan's composting line of the Dairy Dew, and in our world, it's their bag that they sell it out of, and it's 844. It's called Food Plot Dew, and that's exactly what it is. It's a manure-based fertilizer, 844. And the first thing, I already know what you're thinking, because I've been told that a million times, is it's nowhere near as powerful as triple 19, but once you use it, you'll never use triple 19 ever again. Triple 19, this is our fertilizer comparison. And so we've got a scoop that's in the office, and it's about that, it's about that deep. I don't know exactly how many ounces are in it. It's probably an ounce, or a little over an ounce of a scoop, and we put that in each one of these, this being the triple 19, this being the Morgan's compost, the 844 Food Plot Dew. So this is what I was telling you about on the about the, obviously I got it labeled do not drink. It's got fertilizer and it's got triple 19 in it, and obviously you can see there is absolutely no residue, nothing at the bottom of this. There's no salt. It's salt based, so there's no nothing settled at the bottom. It's been in there for a year or longer than a year now, and there's nothing in here, absolutely nothing. Someone would drink it just as they would drink water. So in other words, perfect example that there's no water retention. There's nothing. Yes, it's got fertilizer. Yes, it helps grow. But there's nothing on, if you're on a maybe a little clay loam, or your topsoil is really heavy, maybe you won't see it as much. But like I said, 95% of the food plots that I go to are properties that I go to, their food plots are failing. The customers are struggling with it, and the reason is because there's no water retention, and it's sandy loam soil. Not that it's all sand, but the topsoil is porous, and there's no bottom, there's no water retention, there's no organic matter. This is why we use the 844, and I don't, like I said, I don't sell it, I don't make anything off from it, I send my clients to them to get it, or if I'm on a project and I got extra, you can buy it from me, whatever the case is. But fact of the matter is, this is why we use it, and this is it's the whole ounce, the whole bottom of this is solid organic matter. That's been in there a year. So as you can see, the whole bottom of that is solid mass. I haven't shook it up. I just went and got it out of the office. It's been sitting on the shelf in there. You can't see through it. I mean, and that's an ounce. There's this much of it in the bottom, and it's completely all settled on there. Now if I were to shake it again after been settled for a year, you can see it doesn't take just seconds, and it's right down to the bottom again. So I'll come over here and just try to give you a little better aspect of it. So great stuff, great product. I'll never use triple 19 again, as long as I'm in an area where I can get it. And triple 19, guys, is salt based, and it doesn't hold. It leaches. Yes, it's fertilizer. Yes, it promotes growth, but it does not promote water retention. And water retention, like I said, 95% of these food plots are light sandy soil to begin with. Perennial in here, that clover and alfalfa would just explode. The problem with it is there's an alfalfa field, half a mile from here. There's 2, 3, 4 of them within a half mile of here, and you can't compete with that. So they, you know, agricultural, they're not going to plant, you know, once the corn's gone, and you know, the alfalfa is after its second or third cutting, depending on the year, is gone. That's why the brassicas are so important, and that's why I steer everybody towards those going into the fall, so you don't get caught in this trap of making these summer food plots, and you know, they're getting destroyed because of the simple fact that there's just too many deer on them. And there's a lot of things that come with that, you know, drama and everything. But on the other hand, on you know, the topic of this video here is what it does is I see over and over and over again is I see that it just destroys these plots. I mean, you can spend all kinds of money, and it just, you know, they eat it each out of house and home. You just don't have the volume or the area to sustain it. So what I do is you know, rye. I promote a lot of rye in these plots, especially if the organic matter isn't correct, because you put it down and it just adds to the soil base. And using your fertilizer, I highly recommend using that manure-based fertilizer from Morgan's Compost, and it's just loaded with all the right nutrients that you need. So that to me is huge, and that's why we use it. Last year they had a couple of clients that were using it. I had clients that were using it that had like 30-inch brassicas. I mean, it'll blow your mind. And it's all about tonnage. It's all about tonnage in the fall. Obviously, like I said, you can have the greatest summer food plot in the world, but I mean, is deer season opened in July and August? It's not. You need to have that tonnage, and you need to have that correct forage going into the fall. But do not separate your food in these food plots. And like I said, the strongest reason that is you've got half your food plot into great clover and great alfalfa, and the rest of it's into brassicas, and they mature at different rates. Before you know it, half of this food plot is brassicas, and it's closer to your stands a lot of times, what I see guys doing, and the other side of it's this clover. Well, the clover and the alfalfa are hit, and so all early season they're away from your tree stands to begin with, which your stands shouldn't be on the food plots, but if they are, then they're away from it, they're out of your shot range. And then going into the end of the you know, October, around that Halloween or first week of November, it freezes, and those brassicas peak and they're gone. They mow them down, and you know, fact of the matter is they mow them down at night, because a lot of these food plots are getting hunted, and it does absolutely no good. So it all ties together. You can see, you know, keeping the pressure off as far as hunting these plots and what to plant in them, because when you start creating this separation, and half of your food plot is this, half of your food plot is that, this plot over here is this, you know, taking 40 acres consideration, you got 4 plots or whatever, 2 plots, 4 plots, and they're all planted into something different. You got deer spread out all over, and they're using different plots on different maturity, and before you know it, you get to the end and you got one stand location that's producing. And the reason is because your food plots are so diverse. And the biggest thing for me is going back on these food plots as far as diversion inside of the same plot. Let's say I was to take this 1/4 acre plot, split it right in half of it be clover and alfalfa, and the half of it be brassicas. The problem with that is like I said, you know, they're away from you during the wrong times, and then they destroy it at night. But what also it does is, as they mature, as these plants mature differently, and they're harder to maintain as well, because different sprays and everything else. But as it matures, all your deer are on one side of the plot, and then they're on the other side. The fact of the matter is, guys, you're only dealing with like a quarter. This plot's only like a 1/4 acre. Yeah, some things to take into consideration there. Had a couple of, you know, this is actually a question and answer. I just spoke with a gentleman about this, and I get that question a lot, is, you know, what do I plant in these plots? And this is what I recommend. This is how I recommend doing it. So if you got any questions, guys, feel free to reach out. And I always recommend, if you got, you know, before, always ask the questions and the right questions. No question is a bad question. Reach out and find these answers, because I'd rather give you the information that obviously that I failed years and years ago, and, you know, I do this full time and I see what works and what doesn't, and I'd rather see you be successful and have it all ready, and, you know, ready to go, and as powerful as it can be in those right locations, and planted with the right stuff going into fall, and be successful. That's what we're all here for. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Stay safe.